But I mean this, to go back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix. I mean, literally back to the Matrix, like the original Matrix. Like we're gonna copy the plot of the first Matrix film for the most part, and then bring it back out for the fans, and then add some more onto it from there. But mostly it's still a retread of the original. But back to the Matrix. Genius.
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix.
So yes, today we have the arguably long-awaited Matrix Resurrections. I'm thinking I'm back. So yeah, Matrix Resurrections, the fourth, I counted, 1, 2, 3, 4 Matrix movie is finally out. This one, I don't believe, was a victim of any of the COVID delays. It's just here now. Odd choice still to have it come out the weekend after No Way Home, but you know, again, you gotta get all those December releases out there, right? But yeah, The Matrix is literally another sequel. It just takes place after the events of the third Matrix film. I recently reviewed the first one on my channel, and I'll be real with you, I didn't get a chance to watch and review the other two as much as I wanted to. Your boy apparently has a very busy and very sleepless schedule, so I definitely covered the first one. Now, it's kind of appropriate because a lot of what this movie covers and draws reference from, a majority of that is from the first film. Granted, it's also the other two, but mostly the first one. So from the top up, Matrix Resurrections is directed by only one of the Wachowski, the now known Lana Wachowski. And funny enough, this is technically her directorial, like, solo debut. No, she did, in the past, we know that she, I believe formerly he, co-directed, the original Matrix films and a lot of other films like Jupiter Ascending and Cloud Atlas and all that. In terms of what she solo has directed, I believe only a few episodes of Sense8, though kind of, funny enough, Sense8 kind of gives off similar vibes to Matrix, so that makes sense, but this is her first, like, solo outing into directing a film. Overall, like, I don't know the history, I don't know the specifics of why she is the only one who wanted to continue on the Matrix legacy and not both Wachowskis, but between, potential family issues or creative differences, if I had to assume maybe even something with the studio, who knows. In terms of the star power, like, I was surprised by who the actual stars were. Obviously, you have Keanu Reeves. You got Keanu here as the star, as Neo, as Mr. Anderson. And, I mean, Keanu's Keanu. I've made it no secret of mine that I love Keanu. Is he an Oscar-winning actor? I don't believe so, just because he has kind of very similar tones, cadence, and intonations in most of what he does. But I think he's still a very good actor, one of the best people that exist in this universe, and he's always gonna give you a good show and put on a good performance, and this movie's no exception. He again picks up that mantle of Neo very well. Of course, you have the love interest, which I've made my qualms about in the past, but overall I still love her. Carrie-Anne Moss, she's back for this one. They got some of the old actors back in for this, and some of them they didn't. Very interesting which ones didn't show up, but Carrie-Anne Moss is here again. A good comparable amount of screen time, since she is like a large part of what drives the plot. Here's what surprised me. We got Yahya over here, who has been recast as Morpheus, and they give reasoning as to why it's not Lawrence Fishburne. I don't know about any like actual real world contractual reasons. There's some, I heard that he never even got the phone call, but he's the new Morpheus, but he's not exactly Morpheus. Now it's weird because they give you an explanation that for me satisfies why this is a new Morpheus, but surprisingly enough, for as much of the marketing as he was in, the guy who plays Morpheus, who by the way, great actor, I've talked about him before, he's shown up Candyman as one of my more recent movie reviews, but the guy who plays Morpheus in this one, Yahya, he's not in as much of the movie as you would think he should be. Like, we talk about Morpheus, but we don't see a lot of action from Morpheus. We see some involvement, but not as much as you would think. The pleasant surprise was that instead of just relying on the core cast, you want to know who I think stole her parts of the show? Jessica Henwick. Bugs. I saw her in the trailer and I thought she was going to be side character so-and-so that gets axed in the first or beginning of the second act. No, she plays a very large role, and I think she did a great job. You got a new fan. I'm going to be watching out for what work you do in the future. She did a great job, and her character that I didn't think was going to be involved majorly in the plot, she's almost kind of a new Trinity in a way. She doesn't replace Trinity, but she definitely has a very large amount of involvement, more so than I thought would be, but she does a great job, like most of the cast does. I was unsure how to feel about it at first, but Jonathan Groff as Mr. Anderson, again, I wasn't too sure how to feel about this. I love Jonathan Groff. I love him in Mindhunter. I loved him in his little spot in Hamilton, but mostly I love him from Mindhunter and his more serious works. So I knew that he could have like a very serious, very like business suit side to it. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I know him from Frozen, how can he be a bad guy? It was interesting because he kind of puts his own spin on it while still being Mr. Smith. Like, it's funny to see like the new Mr. Smith wearing like something like this, like a basic undershirt, a suit jacket, and like boat shoes as he's like, Mr. Anderson? I'll get into the overarching feelings in a bit, but I kind of liked it. I'm here for it, if you know what I mean. So overall, here's the thing. Thanks to such websites as Rotten Tomatoes, and especially when I saw IGN's, the professional critics out there are making it no secret how awful they think the new Matrix film is. Critics are like pretty much trashing this film. The main consensus appears to be Matrix Resurrections, and I think IGN, their consensus kind of covers a lot of it. A lot of really, really, really cool and nifty new concepts are brought up, but they don't believe they're executed properly. This is one of those circumstances where I disagree. I thought Matrix Resurrections was actually good. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was perfect. I didn't think it was the best Matrix film. But all things considered, with how terribly sequels can go these days and how easily people can fuck up the legacy of a film or franchise, I thought Matrix Resurrections did a great job of honoring its source material, expanding the universe, giving us a mostly new story, and giving us like a fresh coat of paint and some new ideas. Like, I enjoyed the film. There were some moments, especially when it actually starts getting an original plot, where I thought it was really cool. It's very clear and obvious that since it's been years and years since the last Matrix film, the film creators and the film franchise itself benefits greatly from updated practical visual effects, better budgets, and the tools that we have at our disposal today. The movie benefits from it. It's probably arguably the best looking Matrix film that exists so far. Granted, there's still a very large reliance on CGI, but at the same time, the CGI they're using is an homage to the first one. Not to say that it looks like, when I was watching it, I was like, man, this kind of, is this cheesy, is this hokey? But what they're doing is they're capturing the spirit of how the original Matrix films were and how the world of the Matrix kind of visually looks and functions. So my gut instinct, my gut reaction at first was, oh, I don't know, this kind of looks hokey, but I'm like, well, no, this is what the Matrix has always been like, and they're actually being surprisingly faithful to the source material. Like I said, I like the explanations of why, like, in the trailers, like, you can tell Neo is back in the Matrix. He's trying to figure it all out, basically. We're kind of getting a retread of the first film, but I'll go into that in a second. That being said, the explanations for how everybody is where they are, how the Matrix is continuing right now, and these new characters, and why we're seeing some familiar faces and some new faces on old characters, I felt personally like the explanations provided made sense. And they made sense for the narrative, for the characters that made decisions that led to how that all panned out. Like, it's all, and I love using this word a lot, but it's all diegetic to the narrative. I thought so, at least. I think it makes sense. Now, it is still high concept science fiction. So a lot of the concepts introduced in this are still kind of high flying, it's a little bit hard to follow, and you're kind of relying on what you're visually seeing. But I think only about 20% of the film is explained poorly in regard to the conceptualization. I think most of the film does a pretty good job of telling you what's going on. The pro, the con I was going to kind of bounce back and forth on was that, granted, this kind of goes off the explanations provided for the film. The film plays it very safe in regard to its narrative. I think they pull a Force Awakens here, where they retread, like the first half of the film is basically you're watching The Matrix again. You're not necessarily shot for shot, beat for beat, but the main narrative strokes and where we are, it's all very much like, oh, this is basically a repeat. We're doing this again. I wanted more of the movie to be like more new story to further the plot, and the movie does further the plot, but I wish we would have gotten there a lot sooner. Instead of halfway through the movie, I would have liked it if, okay, maybe the first act is this reawakening, and then we go on. And I guess an argument could be made that's kind of what they do. I do also think in the first act that I think it was a common complaint among people. My roommate also agreed. The first act gets a little bit too meta, and you worry that it's gonna like go full tilt into it. It gets weirdly meta, and you get what they're going for. You get the joke they're going for, and kind of what they're trying to say, and what they're trying to also like. They're like not really poking fun at the fan base and all that, but they're pointing out the obvious, which is that, you know, if we remake and make a new Matrix film, here's all the different like, here's what we're gonna have to encounter, and they like address it in the film in a very like on the nose way. They almost go too far, but they pull back just in time, and so it barely skirts through, but it works just enough. By the trailers, I thought I would at least enjoy it, and I did. I think I really enjoyed it. I like it. I accept it as like another entry in the Matrix franchise. The ending is, I don't know how I feel about the tonal shift in the ending. It works for the purposes of the universe and for setting up potential sequels. I don't know if we're gonna get sequels, but a little bit mixed feelings on the tonal shift, like I said. But throughout most of the film, I thought it was engaging. I thought the action was good. It was fun. It was still R-rated in terms of language and action, but I felt like they almost kind of made it a very light R. Like it could have been even like grittier, but it wasn't. So, you know, not that they were pulling their punches, but they were at least like, they weren't like over embellishing the violence, you know. But I think what they bring up to the table, they bring some old characters back. They milk the nostalgia a little bit. I mean, No Way Home also did it this year, so I can't say too much about it, but there's definitely a healthy dose of nostalgia, which even includes showing like literal scenes from the first film, which they do a lot, which I guess helps to provide contextualization. Most films are like, oh, here's a person, and now you as the viewer can have that memory and that visual recollection yourself, but instead they're like, oh, here's the person, and here's a literal shot from them in that movie, and it's like, it's an interesting choice. I don't entirely disagree with it, but typically I don't like being spoon-fed shit, so I don't know, mixed feelings on that. I will not spoil the film. You can watch it in theaters or you can stream it. I think it's worth a watch in theaters. I would say go see it in IMAX, but No Way Home is kind of dominating the IMAX scene right now, so it's almost virtually impossible to. But I will say this, I think the critics are being a bit too harsh. Is this the most original Matrix film to exist? No. Is it the best Matrix film to exist? Heavens no. I think it's still a worthy sequel. I think it could keep going in this direction. I like the modern takes and interpretations, both in like, not only in costume design, but like even in the whole like, the original Matrix films had this whole, okay, we're in the late 90s, but we're gonna have that late 90s edgy, that's what everybody dresses like. And similar to our current era, everybody that goes into the Matrix it's more modern, but their imaginations of what modern cool looks like lines up a bit more with our like version of like modern cool, artistic, free-spirited like costumes and hair designs and all that. They give it an update for our generation, or for this current generation, so I appreciated that. Getting off topic here, Matrix Resurrections I think is a solid film. I think it's a good Matrix film. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's perfection. I think I would give it a low 4 out of 5. I would give it a low 4 out of 5. It's above average. It's not fantastic, but I thought it was pretty great. I enjoyed it. I have some complaints, but nothing that would majorly detract from my rating. I think it's good. I thought it was good, and I mean, I get why the critics are upset and why some people out there are upset, but I think that the new concepts and I think all the new is almost all entirely well incorporated into the film. Not all of it, but most of it. And for that reason, I recommend it. If you're a Matrix fan, if you're a Keanu fan, go for it. Otherwise, if you're not big on the Matrix, then I mean, obviously skip this one. But that's all I gotta say. Thank you so much for watching. That was my review for Matrix Resurrections, and we'll see if they are able to make any more in the future. If not, I'm still curious to see what the Wachowskis try to make going forward, because it's kind of hit or miss, a mixed bag in regard to the filmography, but I'm still here for it. Thank you as always so much for watching and supporting, and goodbye, travelers.